angle. I think it's very doable. Um, and I think it could be, not that you would do it for the money, but I do think it could be lucrative because I've seen a little mini operation like this. Okay.
Mm.
But in a context maybe that you wouldn't expect.
Okay.
So I am friends with a guy named Marcus Samuelson. And Marcus Samuelson is a celebrity chef. He is an Ethiopian-born Swede, whom became very successful. He won a James Beard Award, multiple Beard awards. He started a restaurant that hosted Barack Obama's fundraising dinner. Um, wait 1 second. And he has a passion for art, and so his restaurant, the Red Rooster, happens to be like a super super happening spot. And one thing Marcus has, because he's a little bit more successful as a restaurateur, so he has got a big staff, and he's got like an actual staff that's like in the kitchen, but then he has like a actual corporate office, let's say a little restaurant group, and he actually has an arts dealer or an arts person. I don't know what you would call her, but she's in the staff. And so one day it occurred to me, I was like, oh shit, that's kind of crazy that a restaurateur has a full-time hire whose sole job is to curate the art. That's what it is, an art curator. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized that they were actually sourcing artists, right, that they believed in, and then commissioning original prints or pieces, right, and putting them in the restaurant. So they were getting a one of one, putting them in this restaurant that essentially served as an arts incubator. And just because they were in there, because they have such a very interesting clientele, and this is the who's who of Harlem and just in general, because Harlem is an important neighborhood. Going there, and then they're seeing this art, and they're like, "Oh shit, who's that?" And then these people would go and buy because they bought at the Red Rooster, and it was actually driving the price of the assets that they owned, the art, up, and it was
Right.
increasing the value of the artists. And I just thought that that was the most brilliant thing. And then they expanded that concept. Marcus does like audiobooks, so he was commissioning the same artist to do the cover of their audiobooks, and he does cookbooks as well. So he commissioned a Harlem artist to do that, and and a jazz band to do the soundtrack. And I mean, he's really taken it places. So that's why I said it's kind of like maybe a context that you maybe wouldn't have expected, but I've seen the arts incubator thing work really well. And because Marcus is from Ethiopia, he does tap also a lot of African artists. So all that to say, I really see a lane for this working.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. By the way, I've heard
Oh,
of
you do?
him, and
Okay.
I've seen a lot of his TV appearances, and he's done a lot of documentary. I've seen
For
a
sure,
lot of
for
his
sure.
work on.
Yeah, he stays busy, and like that's because he has a mini team in there that it's super fascinating, because he's got a core business in food, but he actually has a bigger, more lucrative business in media. So he just has
Yeah,
become this like very big voice in food. And so similarly, I think you have this opportunity, and you said you want to start part-time, so I don't know, how much you really want to bite off, and how how like active you want to get, because the reality about these types of things is, you kind of get out what you put in. I do think it's a myth that you can start something and kind of nurture it sort of kind of here and there. Like, I think it can get going, but I do think, this is my personal opinion, I think people will disagree with me, but just from my own personal experience, and also having seen literally thousands of deals that we looked at at HCP, and just from talking to a lot of founders, I do think that eventually you hit a crossroads, where you decide if you're going to really amp it up, or you're going to hire to amp it up, or you're going to give it to someone to amp it up, or you're going to wind it down. But the good news is that it can start on the side until you get to the point where you have the luxury of having that crossroad. Um,
yeah,
but, but all that to say, your earlier point around classism thing, I think there's a really really clear way to turn, what could be seen as a disadvantage, race, Africa, poverty, all that stuff. You could just make that your
hmm
superpower. Just lean right into it instead of skirting around and saying, "Oh, African artist," like you whisper it. Nah, it's like, yeah, this is an African art collective. Boom. Just like work it in the name, build the brand around it, really be vocal about it. You turn it into your superpower, and then people will perceive it differently. People will perceive it however it is that you put it down. That's what I've learned. If you're uncomfortable about being an immigrant, if you're uncomfortable about having an accent, if you're uncomfortable about whatever, then it will come across in the way that you communicate it to people, But if you're
Oh, I
communicating,
see what you're saying.
yeah, if you're
Yes,
communicating being in Africa and having African artists as a superpower, and you brand around it, and you have the visual elements around it, and you work it in the name, not that the name is a must, but I'm just saying an African saying in the name, or whatever, but like the more you work it into proactively into your situation, the more you're leveraging it for what it actually is, which is a differentiator, not a disadvantage.
Okay. I see
I
what you
turn
mean. I myself am not an immigrant, but I'm wanting to utilize this kind of untapped market because there's so many different countries to explore. I'm not sure what country the chef is sourcing, but in Ghana, and I mean, the poverty level is so high, it's ridiculous. So if you go to a country, you can find talent that is unutilized. There's so many. Everybody's born with a talent. There are people who can sing. There's people who can dance, and who are artists. And artists without an opportunity, especially in a place like Africa, it just kind of dies on the paper. And
Yep. And also too, I was, it's not that you have to be an immigrant or whatever, but it's just that if this is the platform that you're going to build, then the platform should leverage, the very cornerstone upon which you're building it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I completely understand.
Yep, I love it, and I think you have a lot of creative opportunities here, and the creative part. So thankfully you're creative, so you'll come up with creative ways to really be able to fully express the platform in a number of different ways. So for instance, um, you can express it obviously digitally is the lowest hanging fruit, right? Instagram, you come up with like a beautiful art collective page on Instagram. Okay, fine. But how else can you push the mold on that? Can you create? Can you start layering that experience where there's a once a month art collective call, and people can watch live as someone kind of uncovers their art and shows it off to people, all from Zoom. Can you kind of do a behind the artist or behind the painting type of series where you find prominent African arts pieces, and speak with the artists and unpack them a little bit, and talk about some of their tactics. There's a lot of ways that you can layer it. You'll have to kind of back into what feels most natural to you. I don't know if you like speaking, I don't know, whatever. But like yesterday, I tweeted and I dropped it on Instagram. What if Jesus Christ wouldn't have shared his gospel? Well, you got a gospel, and you got to share it, because otherwise you'll just die with the good news. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yes.
You got to find some way. You don't have to model yourself after anything that makes you feel inauthentic or uncomfortable. Maybe you partner, I don't know if you like have a passion for sharing or whatever, but point is, you got to figure out some way to share the gospel. Maybe you share it through the art. Maybe you share it through a, non-verbal, just purely, seeing art being made in a time lapse, or whatever your angle is going to be. You got to figure out some way to share the gospel now that you have it. And I know you had mentioned with the art studio, so you can leverage the physical space if you wanted to do a physical space. But I also just want to assure you that you don't need the physical space to get going.
Yeah, for me personally, I'm 31, so I feel like I have a good sense of who I am and what I like and don't like. And I know that I don't want to be in the center of attention. I don't like it. So for me, I'm more of a fan of being behind the scenes. And I recognize that somebody else can be hired to do that, do the talking and be the personality and things like that. As far as getting, I mean, there's so many art dealers. That's what they do. Art dealers have the verbiage, they have the finesse to sell art, and they love to be admired and kind of applauded for their art historian qualities. I mean, they love that. Me, I just like to just kind of be in the background. So I see myself hiring somebody to do these things so that there's something for people to take a hold on, like as far as having an internet presence and having media and things like that. Just having someone, maybe having a lead dealer who can take these collections and get and be hired to sell it. I mean, because that's essentially what they do. They get commission and they sell the work, and they're the ones who do all of that publicity thing, which I know I would not be comfortable doing, but I understand that it's important because although Instagram and social media are powerful tools for almost every industry, I'm not too convinced that it is the best platform for art. And the reason why is because I'm a bit like, for some reason, when I look at art, I can kind of really connect emotionally with the masterpiece. And it just doesn't have that effect on Instagram. It's 2D. You just can't grasp it as well on Instagram. A lot of it is just photos, they're stills, you can't really, but through film, yes. So maybe a YouTube would be better than Instagram. I know there's videos on Instagram, but mostly it's just scroll down. So I could definitely look into taking something up on YouTube, because the video can help kind of transfer all the essence of art, but a photo wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think I personally disagree with you, but
okay.
But it doesn't matter. Like, I think what you're backing into is what is right for you.
Yeah. I think everything can be utilized. Everything can be utilized.
Exactly. And it's just a matter of backing into what feels best for you. And that ends up being, that's what I like about entrepreneurship, is it ends up being an expression of who we are.
Definitely.
I mean?
And I think it's interesting what you said earlier in reference to classism. You said that, I feel like you were essentially saying that people are going to perceive you how you view yourself. Is that what you're saying? Well, this is the thing. I think that is very true, but there are some people who need work. I mean, I feel like it's the number one reason why recording artists get makeovers, right? They wouldn't give them makeovers if it was all just about how you feel about yourself. There's a lot of transformation that kind of happens to get them to look the par, behave the par, perform the par. I feel like transformation is necessary in some cases. Are you saying that you don't agree that some people have to?
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter.
Oh, wow. Because I was thinking in my head, I'd have to make some changes. That's wonderful. That
no,
it doesn't matter.
I mean, because first you start viewing what you thought was a disadvantage as a strength, right? And you're not gonna even convince yourself at first. It'll take a little bit of time for you to try those new shoes on and get comfortable in them, right? And then look, you're not here to tell anyone about Jesus, right? It's like either they believe or they don't. So from there, you're going to start building your movement with people that already resonate with and like are most likely to believe and get behind what you're building. And then just like several layers of differentiation, like separation, right? So first, the people that are most prone to get involved and are already supporters, and then it just kind of goes out from there. People that can kind of sort of see if the energy was there, and like you go converting people, the bigger you get and the more momentum you get. Right on anything like Airbnb, as an example, if it didn't exist and you told me about it, I would just think it would never work. It's fucking bizarre. You get a total stranger into your home. Like, what? No way. But because it just grew, it's just now like normal. And so similarly, HCP investing in Harlem Capital, and we were investing in Black folks. Like, it was just, nah, I mean, it's a fluffy thing. It's not going to work, but now I literally right before this call, Henry Kravis, who's one of the pioneers of private equity, was just boasting on CNBC about how he invested in us and how we're his fix to the diversity problem. Literally.
Okay.
Yeah, like, look at my stories, you'll see. So like, people,
right,
you know what I mean? Like, they'll come around, but it starts with you first, and then you convincing the most devoted people, and then kind of going out, and eventually, the whole market gets swayed.
That's awesome. I have this book that I'm studying, and I say study as opposed to read, called Mindset. And it's really phenomenal. It speaks a lot about some of the things that you're intuitively knowing already. And the one thing that I feel is my biggest roadblock as far as mindset is concerned is feeling like I need to change in order to fit into these high rollers. And you're saying you don't have to change. And I think that's phenomenal. And when I say change, I mean just maybe materialistically, aesthetically, because I feel like people can look at a certain individual and perceive their value just from looking at them.
Right.
And maybe the crowds that you're in don't do that. And so I guess that's something.
No, I think I still deal with that for sure. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it doesn't matter because it's not deterministic. Like, just because it's true that people are discerning your value unfairly doesn't mean just because it's true that they're doing that doesn't mean it's true that they're right.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, yes, it's a reality that people do that. However, just because someone's flawed perception of you is their flawed perception of it, that doesn't make it a reality. It just means that they're doing it. And the more I've learned, like, the more I've tried to focus on converting people that weren't necessarily believers, let's call them, like, there are some people that you're just going to have to do way more work to convince than others. And starting with trying to convert the unconvertible is going to be a massive expenditure of effort that,
it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for you. It's not worth it for what you're trying to build, because they'll sap all your energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah. And just to clarify, I wasn't talking about like ethnicity or anything, just like your clothing, the brands,
right,
your fashion, your, that kind of judgment.
For sure. Right there with you. Right there with you.
Well, thank you so much for this call. I've taken so much from what you've had to say. I won't take any more of your time. I'm going to do some research into the chef that you mentioned, because yes, I've seen his restaurants, but I didn't know about the art part. So maybe he has some media coverage on that. That would be worth looking into.
You know what? I love that. I love how you're thinking. And guess what? If he doesn't, then perhaps you can be the first for him, and, whether it's you asking the questions or you arrange it, however it is that you want to do it, it's fine. But I love that idea for you. I love the idea of you being able to kind of just like enter in that way, and you just kind of lean into what you're already passionate about, conversation around the arts, and just kind of bringing it to the forefront, and emerging as a voice, whether that's you or just via you because you organized it. But yes, I love it. I also enjoyed this call. I would like to be just available to you. It doesn't have to be transactional. I appreciate you did this. This is certainly an experiment for me, but you have my personal email that you can hit me up anytime. And if I could be a sounding board or just a resource, I would like to be.
Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate your time.
100%. You enjoy your weekend, and I guess you'll be in touch, and I'll look forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Cheers, Gwen. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Wes. Wake up, Mr. Wes. Mr. Wes. What's up, man? How you doing? Sorry I'm a few minutes late here. My last one ran over, but we will make the time up. Can you hear me okay? I can hear you. I have an echo on myself. And you're in 2 sessions. Yeah, there you go. So now I guess maybe just turn the video on this one if you want. But I'm going to kick off a recording. There you are. Yes, there you are. Perfect. I hear you great. There's no echo. You hear me great, hopefully. There's no echo. Oh, you can't hear me? Check, check, check. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Check, check, check. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?